This is exercise 1.2. Before you start, you need to have read chapter 1 in the textbook, and you need to print out the exercise 1.2 worksheet. You will fill in the worksheet as you watch this video. Here we have a list of variables. Variables are categories that differentiate each one of us, or each person, from other people. The categories are variables because they are ways in which we vary. You can distinguish one person from another, or how one person varies from another, in terms of their gender, their income, their birthplace, their opinion of the government, and so forth. Each of these categories is a variable. Notice that the variables in the right-hand column may depend on where someone falls into the categories in the left-hand column. For example, someone's opinion of the government may depend in part on their income, or someone's level of weekly exercise may depend in part on their age. The reverse is not true. Someone's age is not going to depend on their political orientation. Nothing is going to change somebody's age. But the kind of categories in the right-hand column may depend on where someone fits into the categories on the left. For that reason, we call the kinds of variables in the right-hand column dependent variables. They may depend on something else. And we call the categories on the left independent variables because they are independent. They don't depend on anything. Another way to think about it is cause and effect. The cause are the variables in the left-hand column. The effect are the variables in the right-hand column. Someone's gender, for example, may be the cause of how much exercise they do each week, or their political orientation. Or someone's age may be the cause or independent variable of their opinion of the government, the effect. Now look at your worksheet for exercise 1.2. In the areas marked 1A and 1B, identify two more independent variables. And in the area marked 2A and 2B, identify two more dependent variables. Let's go back and look at what these kinds of variables look like. Independent variables in the left-hand column generally describe somebody's demographic data, their gender, their income, their age. These are the categories that may help determine how people fall into other types of categories. Think of two other types of variables that fall into the left-hand column and place those in the 1A and 1B areas on your worksheet. For the dependent variables, these are the kinds of categories in the right-hand column that may depend on the type of categories in the left-hand column. Think of two more examples of dependent variables and put those in the 2A and 2B areas. You may want to pause the video while you think about this and complete that step. Now let's move on. We have here our categories, our independent variables on the left and our dependent variables on the right. In social science, a theory shows the connection between an independent variable and a dependent variable. Sometimes additional variables are included in the theory, but we will stick for now to the simplest kind of theory, the connection between one independent and one dependent variable. For example, we might say that income, an independent variable, affects someone's political orientation, a dependent variable. Another example, we might say that race or ethnicity affects someone's opinion of the government. We have here statements of cause and effect. We're saying that income affects political orientation. We're saying that race and ethnicity affects, or in some way is the cause of, someone's opinion of the government. So we're showing cause and effect between one independent variable and one dependent variable. However, we're not showing how that independent variable affects the dependent variable. We're simply saying that it does affect it. we're not saying how someone's income affects their political orientation, whether having a higher income or a lower income makes someone more or less liberal or conservative. The theory doesn't say that. It simply says that someone's income affects their political orientation, or that someone's race and ethnicity affects opinion of government, without saying how. Back to the exercise 1.2 worksheet. Choosing from our same variables below, identify 2 more theories and write them on the worksheet in the areas marked 3A and 3B. To review, the theory takes one independent variable and one dependent variable and shows in a cause and effect format how one affects the other. Income affects political orientation. From this list of 5 independent variables and this list of 5 dependent variables, you now create 2 additional theories. Pause the video again if you would like additional time to do this, and restart when you're ready to move on. We see variables all the time, particularly when we fill out surveys. But on surveys, it doesn't look like a list of words like we've seen so far. Instead, it would look like this. Here is a survey with the same variables that we've been working with so far in this video, but now it looks like a familiar survey. Question 1 is our first dependent variable, opinion of federal government, but now it's phrased as a question, and we have a set of potential answers. Someone's belief in the supernatural is now phrased in item 2 in the form of a question, again with answer choices. Notice that the first 5 questions here come from our list of the 5 dependent variables that we've been working with. Numbers 6 through 10 here are the independent variables we've been working with: gender, income, birthplace, race, ethnicity, and age. On surveys, often the dependent variables will occur first, and the independent variables will come later, and that's what we see here. Chapter 9 later in this course will explain why. The answer choices for each question, the choices within each variable, are called attributes. So here on this survey, we have 10 variables, 5 of them are independent and 5 are dependent, and for each of them we have 5 attributes, or answer choices. Looking quickly to see whether each of the following is a variable or an attribute, religion would be a variable. That's a category that varies from person to person. But Catholic would be one of the choices if we asked for a religion on a survey. So that makes it an attribute. It's one of the potential choices for religion. Similarly, political orientation is the variable that varies from person to person. Liberal is one of the choices of political orientation, so it's an attribute. Occupation would be the variable, and social worker is a kind of occupation, a choice, so it would be an attribute. Now, a theory doesn't say how one variable affects another, but a hypothesis would. And in social science, the hypothesis is the prediction on what that relationship is between the independent and the dependent variable. A theory might be income affects political orientation. A hypothesis, the lower a person's income, the more likely they are to be liberal. Theory, age affects the number of times married. Again, a cause and effect between 2 variables. A hypothesis is a specific prediction on how. The older someone is, the more likely they are to have been married more than once. Here is another theory and another hypothesis. Another hypothesis here, that birthplace has no effect on one's amount of weekly exercise, connects 2 variables and says there will be no relationship between them, no cause and effect. That is called a null hypothesis. Choosing from the variables below, identify 3 more hypotheses in the 4A, 4B, and 4C areas on the worksheet, and 1 null hypothesis in the 4D area. You'll find tips for creating good hypotheses on pages 48 and 49 of the textbook.